Hello and welcome to the Creative Academy. We are doing the blue pencil session. So I am Eileen Cook and these are my fine colleagues, Donna and Crystal. And we're talking today about Mary Ann's piece. I don't actually have the title here in front of me. Do one of you have it? No.
A Forged Affair.
Thank you. So what we have is the book opens and we start with Nikki as our main character. She's on a zip line. And she is getting ready to go down on the zip line. And we know that we are here in France. And she gets ready. She's giving us a little bit of a history. So we have some idea in terms of that she does rescue operations back in BC. So she's clearly been sent on a vacation. And we see her ride down the zip line. And she has a little bit of discussion with Paul, who is the owner of the zip line. So let's start at the very beginning. Ladies, did you have anything you wanted to talk about right off the top?
Sure, I'll dive in there. So the first line is, Nikki Ballantyne squatted on the wooden platform high in the tall pine forest of Aquitaine, firmly gripping the zipline handle in her gloved hands, preparing for exhilaration. And I like that we jump right into a situation where clearly something's about to happen. We know a few things right off about her from the fact that she's standing on a zipline platform in, the top of the forest. But I felt like there was a little bit too much going on there. Like the situation seems to be one of tension and excitement and anticipation, but the length of the sentence is actually slowing down the pacing, which is the opposite of what the words are doing. And so I just thought it might be stronger to break that into two pieces or to kind of combine it with the next sentence in some way, which is, she waited for the all clear signal from Paul, Parc en Ciel's owner, before jumping off. So, if we just compressed all that into something like, Nikki waited for the all clear signal from Paul, Parc en Ciel's owner, before flinging herself off the wooden platform, or something like that, so that we're not held in the waiting. We're brought in pretty quickly to that.
I had almost a similar comment around just that first sentence being quite long. And in terms of being a reader, whenever you have those longer sentences, it's nice to vary, which was one thing that actually Mary Ann does really quite well throughout this piece, is vary the length of sentences, which changes up the feel of it. But by that first sentence being so long, it just takes the reader a second to figure out what's going on. Whereas the other first two parts of these paragraphs, my comments is, I felt really grounded in where we are in terms of a setting and the sensory details. So all of that is working really well.
Mm-hmm. Interestingly, I read it 3 times because I struggled as well to just, once I was there. Even though I speak French, and maybe because I speak French, I was looking at Parc en Ciel's owner and wondering, do we really need to have that right off the bat? Because it was a stumbler for me, which is just bizarre. I don't understand why, but I don't know how you guys feel about that. But it was like, like, I don't know. It was just my reaction to that. It was a stumbler for me.
That one didn't bother me. And it did help ground me that we were in France. Just in case again, someone might not know.
See, I assumed Quebec. I assumed the zip line in Quebec, which is kind of funny.
Oh, for some reason I was in France.
Yeah, I was in the Eastern Townships. So there you
Aquitaine. Go. I just figured that was.
I don't know where Aquitaine is.
But one thing is, if you are going to use French names or language or whatever like that, this is probably an either or, but you could also drop it into italics, like some of the other French phrasing, which would at least cue the reader, like language switch, as a bit of an extra little help to place that.
Thank you. That would have worked, I think. Okay.
One thing I think that also I did want to mention, since we're talking about using foreign language, is that a little often goes a long way. And so I think she's done a nice job here of not having so many French terms that as a reader, you're trying to, struggle to keep up. And then when she is dropping in French, using within a context that even if someone has zero French, they have a pretty good idea of what is happening. So there's a line at the end where Paul's about ready to let her go. And he's like, and my French is so horrible, but toi dois un aller, right? Like, and for me, it worked really well because even if you didn't know what that meant, you have an idea of sort of 3, 2, go. which I thought worked really particularly well. The other highlight I wanted to bring up on that first page, which I just like, is she has the line, his English wasn't half bad, though strongly accented with French and his native Moroccan. Anything was better than her French, they'd quickly learned. I just thought that was a nice little beat of humor. It's not a laugh out loud, slap your knees kind of moment, but it's sweet and kind of funny, and it just kind of helps with the tone, I think, of this piece.
Mm-hmm. I think that also that sentence really strongly places him. Like, we immediately know where he comes from, and the fact that he has traveled a bunch. He's, multiple languages in different countries and all these other things, which gives us a sense of his character in a really compact kind of way without a big like backstory dump. So
Yes.
that was great.
That was good.
Well done.
And Marianne, I apologize. You're thinking, I know you're going to think I'm picking on you. And honestly, I'm not trying to, but the line where he says, 3, 2, 1, allez, he grinned, his white teeth flashing brilliantly against his dark skin. I didn't love that because we know he's Moroccan, so we know he's got dark skin. And I felt it was cliche. White teeth, dark skin, brilliantly flashing just felt, to me, it felt a bit cliche. I didn't love it. I didn't
bump on that one for me.
No.
Okay, good.
But this is the one thing where I will bring up, just because I have done it in the past and certainly have kind of hopefully evolved from that, but certainly I've heard it from other people, which Marianne does not do, for clarity, is there's sort of a tendency sometimes when describing characters who are of color to use for food terminology. So his cafe au lait skin, his chocolate-like skin, and that's, a lot of people of color are saying they're actually finding that offensive, that they don't like to be compared to food. Which, again, certainly was never, my intention when I had used the term sort of cafe au lait skin. I just thought it was, like, not particularly original. Let's give me that. But it was certainly, a way of describing that color, but looking for those different things. So that's something to keep in mind for people who are writing.
Mm-hmm. I guess that would be my tendency towards actually supporting the way that was included, is that it's a very nice, straightforward way to establish skin color without it being a big thing. I mean, you're not, going into lengthy descriptions, but immediately we have a clearer picture. And I think in some cases things are cliche, but it's for a reason, and it's because it makes sense. It is how it is. The white teeth, dark skin, you notice that contrast. Somebody's smile lighting up when they are a person of color. Like it is just it's very sparkly, it's very noticeable, it's very bold, and it is something that catches your attention. And so I don't know, I think that
it worked for you.
Yeah, it worked for me. I didn't bounce off.
Okay.
All right, I'm rolling us into page 2, because at the top of page 2 there's a wonderful description that I just really quite liked. Her pulse quickened as her speed built, the canopy of green whizzing by in a blur, the high-pitched whine of the hardware humming in her ears as much as into her hands and arms. Like, there was just a lot of really nice word choices that actually match. So whizzing, humming, all of those kind of go along with the sound that they actually represent. I think that's onomatopoeia for those of us who are remembering our English language classes. And so I just thought that worked really well. Those were great details, and that really helped the scene pop for a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. There was one thing that did kind of catch for me, which was she gripped the handle tighter and leapt from the platform into the trees, shutting her eyes and opening her mouth for the first few moments. And I don't get the mouth opening part. Like, there might be something about zip lining that I'm not really understanding, but the few times I've done it, I've been like really not wanting my mouth open. You're flying through the air really fast. If you're going through the forest, there's like chunks of branches and things potentially, I don't know, or just bugs. It just, I don't know. I was trying to imagine like opening my mouth. If I wasn't like, woohoo, like, if I'm shouting or excited or something, then I get that. But otherwise, it seemed like an interesting detail. So maybe you've done this or there's a logic behind it, or, it does something in the process or the experience. I don't know. And so if it does, I would love to know what that is. But if not, it just, it felt like that one little phrase was distracting from the other really good description stuff that was in there. It sort of pulled my attention away. Yeah.
And I hadn't noticed that at the time, but now I'm thinking about, I think I ate a bug. So
yeah, sorry for that.
So one of the things that I highlighted on the second page was just a point of clarification. So She's galled that she had to prove to Paul that she was qualified to ride this zip line. He was ever vigilant about safety. So once he'd seen her search and rescue credentials, her climbing certificate, her emergency first aid, and a demonstration of her best parkour moves, he agreed to let her ride. So part of me was just thinking, and again, in terms of odd things to bump on, I'm like, if this is his qualifications to who gets to ride on his zip lines, his business is going to go out of business in record time.
But it's only on the most difficult one, the most challenging zip lines.
Yeah.
Right?
So that was just the only thing where I was just, I just bumped on it slightly, even if it's the most challenging one. Like, how high is the qualification to ride that zip line? And yeah, this is just, again, I wrote like being really picky in my margin note here, like, but it was just something that I bumped on slightly.
And I hit that part, but a different reason is that we're on the zip line with her. We have all these great like sensory details with the whirring and the hardware humming and everything else going on. And now all of a sudden we're in backstory and we are out of the moment. And again, this is like a zip line ride. It lasts seconds and it all takes place at a very high speed, and there's stuff flying past your vision and, you know, all of this going on, but this is taking us away from that immediate action and that sensory experience. And so, and almost the whole second page on the copy that we have is backstory or exposition. So I would love to see just that blended in. You know, a whole lot of it maybe doesn't even need to be right here, but blended in a little bit more broken up so that we're still getting those zips of like what she's seeing. What is it that makes this a really tough zip line? Can we have a few more details? What is she navigating or doing that's beyond just getting in and holding on that makes it a challenging zip line? I don't, as a non-expert, I don't know what those things are, and I would kind of like to know a little bit more just to set me in understanding why she's such a rock star in terms of her physical capabilities, and then seeing some of that other stuff blended in to somewhere else if it is critical to keep it.
And that is a good point, because I guess maybe that's something I bumped on who've never been on a zip line and may never get on a zip line, is I guess I didn't realize that there was actually any skill required for any zip line. Like, I just sort of thought you just ride it. Like, and I may be totally out, like, I don't know. Similar to you, I did bump, there was a paragraph, she could ride and climb and jump circles around most people, but her petite build and girlish features threw them off. That could be fun too, though. Catching people off guard with her agility, skill, and strength gave her an edge. I wrote, I would cut all of this. I feel like we know this once you say that she's in parkour, when she's in this, like, I feel like you're just telling me stuff you've already told me.
And I had the absolute opposite reaction to that. I'm like, yeah. Thank you for letting us know that she is not your standard athlete. And now I have an appreciation for what she's going to be facing with people's assumptions about her abilities, because you've told her that she's petite and girlish. So it's interesting.
And I'm kind of in the middle. I liked that we got told that, but I thought that if it could have been through an interaction, maybe there's somebody watching as she lands who's like, holy crap, you know, I never would have expected that from someone who looks like you, or, you know, whatever, like judgmenty kind of comments they want to make. But I would like to have seen it shown to us through some type of interaction rather than told to us. Yeah. So somewhere in the middle of both of us.
And I think the big thing is there is sort of this big section of things happening while she's on this zip line, like where she's thinking a lot. And it is taking us away from the action of that moment. And I think she can have some, like, I don't think it has to be just straight action in that moment, but there is a fair bit of it. So I might move some of this around. So for example, as we kind of roll into the sort of the next page, we're getting some interesting stuff here. Like, so, you know, it's going to be good that, you know, she's going to be well rested, and thankfully she's almost at the end of this enforced break. And that for me was like, like something happened. And for me, that's very intriguing. And she's going to fly home from Bordeaux. So gosh darn it, she is in France. Yeah. Because now we're in Bordeaux. So that for me worked really well with that little bit of hint. And so I think that would have had more if we hadn't had as much of the details before this, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Especially like that maneuver where she, you know, lands at the bottom of the zip line, and then like 2 seconds later she's doing a double backflip off of the edge of the deck or whatever, or the platform. And so, you know, I think if we're not totally prepped to expect that, it has more impact when we reach it, because we're like, whoa, okay, what just happened there? And then we're getting the full impact of that, being as surprised as anybody watching would be. And we also get the sense that she's, you know, pretty risk takery, and you know, looking for some stimulation, obviously. If she's like suddenly backflipping in the middle of a random situation.
And that, I think, for me, is showing what she earlier was saying. Like, people didn't expect me to be so tough and to be so agile and do all these things. Like, here's, and I love the line, she landed with the agility of a flying squirrel. Like, I just thought that was a fabulous, fabulous line. And to me, that was so much stronger than her telling me that I'm unexpectedly agile and flippy and all those kinds of stuff, because she just showed it so well here.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep.
Little tweaky thing that I changed is, right now the line says, all too soon the ride came to an end and she prepared for her landing. I just changed it to, she prepared for her landing. Something about the all too soon for me felt like it didn't feel all too soon, and partly because we'd had all those lines of dialogue beforehand. So I did swap that out.
Yeah. Yeah, so on the last page, it was interesting, it starts off, Mon Dieu, Paul's voice echoed through the forest. Nikki, you could have killed yourself. Shit of the bull, she replied in French. She stood and faced him, grinning. And then a few lines later, he says, you can't keep translating English expressions literally. So then I got it, but we were a few sections down before that made sense to me. I feel like you need to actually use the French there, just do it wrong. And that will make sense to people who understand French. And for those who don't, they will understand a few lines later when they read that. But having it in English and then saying that she said it in French just felt a bit jarring to me.
It's funny because it's been too many years that I've lived, it's been a long time that I've lived in British Columbia, but I was raised in Quebec and I was fluent. And I was trying to figure out if I was translating bullshit into French, it has to either be in French or something, because it wouldn't translate backwards like that, because it just wouldn't.
Well, and it doesn't, and that's kind of the point, right? Is she's not really saying it properly in French. She's mangling the French.
Well, and it doesn't exist. Like those words, like there's so many that just don't exist in French. I was trying to think, what is that word in French? And I don't think
mère de, I don't know what bull is, but
that's not an
you'd say tabernacle, whatever it is you're gonna say, like they're.
But you'd say the word for bull, which I can't think of, and then you'd say mère at the end. So it wouldn't even be anyway. That's so.
Yeah, but I mean which is the point. Like she's mangling it. But we need I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder if you could just fix this as one who doesn't speak French. I'm all like, I have no idea what you all are talking about. Is she cussed in French and then have Paul come back, shit of the bull? ?
Yeah, exactly.
So you don't have to worry about having that in there.
There you go. Eileen for the win.
Woo!
Eileen for not speaking French. All right. But I do like that line, shit of the bull. Like that made me laugh. And I think these sections here where she's going back and forth with Paul is we're getting, again, more of a sense of her personality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. I was wondering, she kisses him after she gets on the cheek, after she jumps off on page 3, she gave Paul a kiss on the cheek as he unhooked her harness from the line and then from her body, which of course is now making me wonder, is this the romance that's going to happen? And just so you know, like now I'm thinking, in France, they kiss on the cheek for no apparent reason other than to greet and ungreet. But so it is a little bit of maybe foreshadowing of that, what the romance is going to be, or is it going to be with the man with brilliant white teeth? I do not know, but I'm assuming it will be with someone of these two.
I did not have any sense of romance. at all.
But
And if there is, then I would play that up just a moment where she feels her lips brush against his cheek, or just give me one more sensory detail, because I took it as that very, partly because of the line, she landed with the agility of a flying squirrel and laughing gave Paul a kiss on his cheek, because he had, like, it felt very light to me, like there didn't seem any sense. So if she lands with the agility of a flying squirrel and laughed, she leaned in, giving Paul a kiss on his cheek, inhaling the smell of his something. Like, then I'm like, oh, there's a little bit more here.
Yeah, well, and I know Marianne's writing, and it's all the women's fiction. It's always about the female character and a romance. So there is going to be a romance. I know that. And I'm assuming it's going to be one of these two men. So I wanted to, that. I agree with you, Eileen. And I'm hoping it's him and not the other man.
Even that Aziz is described as a youth. I don't know. Depending on the age of our character, hard to say. Yeah, anything is possible. Anything is possible. But
youth could be 22. We don't. How old is Nikki? Do we actually know how old Nikki is?
No, I don't think so. I mean, she's got a lot of certifications, but we don't actually get her pinned down in terms of what age she is.
In my mind, she was kind of late 20s. Just to give Marianne some feedback. Like, when I picture her, I'm picturing kind of that mid to late 20s. Mm-hmm. Maybe because at late 40s, I feel entirely too brittle to be doing these maneuvers that she's pulling off.
I had her pegged younger than that. I had her early 20s.
Blasting EDM, which I believe is electronic dance music.
It is.
Okay, good. So there you go. Vindicated. Not quite as old and out of touch as I am in the music world.
No idea.
Okay. And then, okay.
That's it.
Yeah, I think there's, again, I would say a lot of great stuff. Like, there's things happening. So kudos to that again. My current thing is telling people not to have sitting and talking scenes whenever possible, put them into action. So I love that this piece has people doing stuff. I think we're getting a lot of character details. In terms of things for, Marianne to look at, it is maybe just looking at for a few places where you can make things a tiny bit more clear so that the reader is grounded. And I think the biggest thing is to maybe move some things around so there's not sort of the start of action and then backstory, which takes us back, and then action again. Is just sort of weaving that in a little bit, I think would make this just really pop. Because otherwise the details and descriptions are bang on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So thank you to Mary Ann, and thank you again to my fine colleagues, Donna and Crystal. And if you have a blue pencil that you would like us to take a look at, some pages, you can do that. We have the form. We'll put the link in there for you as well so you can find it. And we'll see you around the Academy. Bye.
Thank you.